I made something of a mistake. I tried to get back into Naraka Bladepoint during December, and immediately upon doing so, the stroke crisis started. Real life has turned into an absolute fucking shit show, and here I am trying to play what is the most frustrating online game I have ever played by far, trying to be not shit and failing at it. The way I saw it was, I tried to bury the fear, the pain, and the anxiety with rage. I suppose I was successful. Since I last played, they gave Tessa the ever most slightest and largely insignificant buff, in which if you miss your ult, 15% of the cost is not expended. This doesn't really make any real difference in practice, because almost everybody in the game will dodge the second ult attempt anyways. The other thing they did is the ult gives you the same spirit buff that your F does, but this doesn't really help you either, because as Immortal demonstrated to us, and as I've encountered plenty of times on my own, the F buff will give priority to your enemy anyways. So it doesn't really do anything besides slightly slow down the rate at which you die, but it doesn't actually let you reset the fight. I now have 1400 hours in this game, and unlike most people who have a large amount of their time accumulated through AFK, I don't run this game while AFK, because it makes my room hot as fuck, and Naraka also has memory leaks that make it perform even worse than it normally does. No, those 1400 hours are accumulated in the well over 1,000 games that I have played now, equally split amongst rank and quick match. Almost all of my matches are extremely embarrassing, by any margin, much less the margin of the time that I've invested into the game. But without any clear means to improve, that's pretty much all I can do. Just keep throwing myself into the game over and over and over, and just hope something comes of it. But we're quite a few videos into this series now, not including my other productions, and it's quite obvious that I'm getting absolutely nowhere. I've still been asking around, questioning high-level players every chance I get, trying to learn every little bit I can. I've put quite a lot of time into watching videos of high-end play, from Hypernova, Zoran, and others, but I haven't learned anything in the process, really. I've learned that a lot of people don't seem to like using parries at a high level, enough to the point that they'll end up relentlessly calling bluffs on blues and taking a lot of unnecessary damage in it. This is also something I probably should have considered a long time ago, but the reality is that this game fundamentally doesn't work for me. And you probably already know why, but I'll lay it out for you, clear as day. Historically, I have always been a reflex-driven player. I've returned to the shooter genre after over 20 years since I last took it remotely seriously, back when I was playing Halo PC and Unreal Tournament 2004 when it first came out. There, I had the opportunity of playing with high-level players such as Doomstalker, whom participated in Cal. But after that, I haven't hardly played any shooters at all, so evidently I'm rusty. But after a little bit of practice with the bots, I started to feel more at home and a little bit more comfortable, even though I never really took advantage of some of the mobility options available in the game because I hate double tapping. Even so, you're gonna see my playstyle in these a lot more than you might within Naraka. I try to focus on accuracy and reflexes, and although my reaction time isn't as good as it used to be, I still rely on it more than I do map awareness or predictions. Every now and then I'm even able to land hits with things like the hit scan weapons that I'm notoriously bad with otherwise. In Perfect Dark, a game I haven't played for at least 25 years now, the same thing can be observed. I'm relying excessively on my reflexes, trying to react more so than anything. I don't watch the radar at all, and it's not very useful even when I'm looking at it since it doesn't show levels. Since I can't really hear anything, especially with all the traffic surrounding me, I'm relying exclusively on my visuals and my ability to react to things that happen. This can lead to some difficulties, however, because there is a lot of one-hit kill challenges in this game, many of which I took attempts at and completed for the sake of my design recording, but only up to a point. The shooter genre by design, it takes the ultra-high lethality of the touch of death present within Naraka to the extreme. There is very rarely any kind of dialogue between players in any of these games. Generally, whom has lead on someone, whom reacts the fastest, and whom gets sight on someone first will win the engagement. Often cases, you die within 1 or 2 hits, especially headshots, and body armor only slightly slows this down. Against the early level bots, I don't really take them super seriously, but you can see that the damage they deal is quite high. As the difficulty ramps up, and I begin to be pressured more, I will become more active, and you'll start to see some of my high level mechanics, like being able to compensate for almost throwing myself off the bridge, and also being able to react around danger zones, like this bot with a rocket launcher. I avoid shooting him in the face, and I even managed to avoid his rocket as well. After that, I'll switch to a less lethal weapon, and just rely exclusively on reflexes once again. This is a playstyle that's been honed in me for over 30 years. I've played this way ever since I started playing console games back in the 90s. This is how I am. I'm not good at pattern recognition. I'm not really good at keeping in touch of things. And my macro awareness has always been a little lacking in the RTS. I know I should be looking for things, but actually doing it and actually paying attention is something I've tried to learn for years and years and years. The dreaded multitasking, and how much it has haunted me since the very beginning. To present day, this still remains an issue, especially in Naraka. Whether it be in training, or against the standard bots, I have found myself quite able to parry blues. I do so by watching for the start of animations. It works well, because the follow-up blues on, say, the dual blades can be parried. But against players, this doesn't work as well. This isn't just because of ping in FPS, however. It's also because of mindset. Counterplay is ingrained into my nature. Reacting and punishing is my playstyle, and has been for a great many years. It is what allowed me to compete with much higher level players in League of Legends, or Heroes of the Storm, for example. And it gave me massive advantages in World of Warcraft for the years that I did PvP. When it comes to Naraka, however, a clear distinction is forming between fights in which I do relatively well in which I remember to attempt things in, and then normal fights in which I don't do either. It all comes down to a level of comfort. When I'm up against a bot, I don't feel any stress. I'm not really worried if I lose. When I go up against players, I get very, very stressed out very, very quickly. This is because I am extremely socially awkward, and I don't function well in an environment with people. So when it comes to a competitive environment, I go through the equivalent of a panic attack, but without really the panic portion. It's still a massive adrenaline rush that I can't really work with, and it lingers for weeks at a time. I overcame this in World of Warcraft because I was in peak form throughout my entire tenure with it. After the few months of my early introduction, I quickly became proficient, and enjoyed years upon years as being one of the best players in our battle group. In low-level or high-level PvP, I never really felt out of my element psychologically. Although the game's balance was often very poor, I never felt the same level of frustration in it that I did within Naraka. Why is that? Why is it I struggle so much to focus on actual fights in Naraka? Is it something that only happens against players? Or is it something that always happens regardless of my comfort level? No, it's actually something that always happens. It isn't quite white and black as it sounds, and I'm still not really sure why. Part of my problem with Naraka is I cannot adapt to the ping in FPS. I can no longer parry based on animations at all. I often get hit before the animation even starts, or on the frame that the animation starts, and usually at distances and with collision that's extremely inconsistent with that animation. This goes against everything that is ingrained in me. It means I need to parry before the attack actually begins. In other words, I need to anticipate that a blue is going to be deployed. But this doesn't work in Naraka. Because the player base is extremely gentrified, full of people who have 4 or more years on their accounts, or people who have been extensively tutored by those people over years, and the reality is that you can't really try to parry them at all. This is the biggest thing I've noticed with Hypernova's playstyle. He will call bluff on almost every single blue, unless he feels like his opponent is very low level. Meanwhile, everything is filled with hold checking. Hold checking is to try to make you parry so they can get in a white. Sometimes you can sneak in a blue, but because my ping is so high, I can't try to sneak in a blue between parries, because the actual parry frames are extremely desynced. Instead, I will get parried. This makes playing blue, as Nebula suggested, very difficult, because if all my opponent does is spam parry, I don't really know what to do at that point. The reality is you need to crouch cancel and go for a white. You don't necessarily need to TOD, but do some kind of damage. Crouch canceling is a whole new beast I've only very recently, as in within the last week, been introduced to, thanks to Immortal, who told me that the key to doing a crouch cancel is to actually double tap crouch and hold the first crouch. This is an extremely complex input for me, and it's not one I can do reliably by any stretch of the imagination, much less as fast as everyone else does it. But you can't just keep using dodge to cancel your attacks in Naraka. This consumes stamina, and stamina is extremely important. One of the most batshit insane revelations I've had about Naraka within the last 2 months is that parrying creates extra collision in front of you and by a non-trivial distance. This is primarily why it's possible to parry people from behind. Why this decision was made, I have no idea, but it makes no fucking sense whatsoever, and is one of the many reasons why this game's parrying system is fundamentally fucked. This is also why the primary method to reaction parry is to do so at a fixed distance, dependent on each weapon and each weapon blue, to dodge out and then parry, placing you at a safe distance physically from the weapon's collision in case you get parry robbed, but then placing the parry collision in front of you, so that the parry still has a chance of going off if you don't get parry robbed. This is really stupid and shouldn't be possible, but that's the fundamental of long-distance parrying in Naraka. Close-distance parrying is something that most people don't try to do, unless they feel like they are really going to get it. Most often, people are going to dodge instead. But there's a problem with this. Naraka has 3 different dodges. The hold dodge, which is the one I'm most ingrained to use, the mid dodge, which has no input, and then the tap dodge, which I often turn into a hold dodge because I'm somehow pushing down the button too long. Actually, it is possible to string together tap dodges, but doing so requires a nearly frame-perfect timing that appears to be extremely difficult at 100 FPS. Otherwise, it turns into a roll, which isn't as useful. Wow, it was only like, what, 10 minute, 8 minute? That probably means I got thrown back into the champion fight. So it took 30 minutes for a normal lobby to be made, most of which was likely to be bots. A chunk of that came out of the champion fight. So I'm guessing that the overflow...
You got a problem with the goon chamber?
Yeah, I got a problem with the goon chamber. Oh, look at that. Canada moment. Guess I'll connect and do nothing.
Goon chamber.
Vent's working. It's just this shitty fucking game. Nah, my ping is fine. Well, guess I'll restart the game then.
Right.
Well, we're spinning again. We have a logo for loading, and then we gotta load again. And we go to the start screen, we push start, and then the game freezes. And then we connect. And then I gotta click again, and then we connect again. I'll click again. Oh, a battle is still ongoing. Yeah, I'd love to reconnect. I'll be dead. Like, we're just gonna get a score screen. If I'm very lucky, I'll zone into ghost form, promptly die, and then get a score screen. Wow. Somehow no one killed me.
Got the message, it reset to keep alive, and then disconnected.
Yeah, it's kind of this repair kit. Didn't leave me anything.
あの者たちに楽しいものを見せてあげましょう。みんな私たちを私の足元にひれ伏し。
Nice. I did parry, by the way.
私に喧嘩を売るとはいい度胸ね。
What the fuck?
This is great engaging gameplay. Cool. I believe that mid-dodge has the most iframes, followed by tap dodging, whereas hold dodging doesn't have that much at all. As I've predominantly been using hold dodging, this is one of the reasons why I'm commonly getting hit by things that I normally shouldn't be getting hit by. But training my brain to not hold something or to only tap something is not quite enough. Even just using the fist blades and trying to tap around with them, it will often release into a blue when it really shouldn't, or it'll just break the dodge entirely and I'll drop the attack. This is because the tap dodges are somehow turning into hold dodges when they shouldn't be, and I'm not really sure why. Whatever the case may be, you may think that the myriad of Souls titles I have played would have given me enough muscle memory to do tap dodging within this game and turn my parry attempts into tap dodges instead. This is not so easy, and it's also not a surefire solution, because it is still extremely ping dependent, and even with low ping, you can often get knocked out of your dodges, and that has happened to me a lot just within the scope of my limited testing recently. While I am not normally someone who rusts like most players do if they don't play for a little while, I don't really feel like I learned enough about Naraka for much of that information to really stick with me. I played a little bit of quick match and bots on and off during the 2-month hiatus from ranked solos, and general gameplay overall. But when I came back, it didn't really feel like I had anything to remember. None of my skills that I had left the game with were worth hanging on to, so they never really maintained in my memory. But there's a few key things I could have been trying to do during this period, like getting in the muscle memory to try to use ranged weapons. This is something over and over and over I will do against bots, but almost never against players except in extremely specific circumstances. And just within the few videos I have released recently, even the games that I have won, a lot could have been done better if I had made use of the flamethrower or other weapons that I had bought and hung on to. There's also a lot of things that would be construed as greedy or aggro, or at least very risky plays, like air attacking somebody who's holding a blue and other such basic mechanical things. The reality is that it doesn't even register to me that I'm doing this, that I'm making such a play against a blue, because I'm not really following what my enemy is doing at that point. I'm looking for the attack animations. I'm not really looking for the hold focus and thinking out a branch of what could be done from there on. In my mind, I can try to parry or clash the blue after the white attack finishes, but this just simply isn't possible and is an invitation for many disasters. I believe that this precedent was set by the fact that higher FPS players are commonly able to do this against me, but that's just because they animate faster than I do. When they have 500, 600 or more FPS and you're at 100, 120, they can finish their animations and their inputs will come up much quicker than yours are. It'll also result in their net update being faster. You don't have those advantages, so you can't think like that. And the interactions with the bots and being able to parry blues based on reading their animations, that also isn't something you can do in this game at all. You can't really look at the animations that much in this. You have to run internal timers inside of your head and judge based on information you are handed at the start of the fight, if you even have a chance to. That's why Casper told me one of the most important things for him was figuring out his opponent's ping. But there's a few dimensions to these interactions. Ping and FPS play an important role in this, but I'm near X. Neko-chan 420 and others are playing on consoles. Their ping may be better than mine, but their FPS is around the same, if not worse. The reality is that there's a difference in the mindset, and it also comes down to the whole button mashing thing I talked about earlier. I'm thinking too many steps ahead of where I am in terms of the inputs. It's not just that I'm mashing the buttons, it's that I'm trying to do things out of order. I'm trying to think ahead of things. This means that I'm trying to put in inputs too quickly in many cases as well. This all comes down to that time with World of Warcraft and the other titles. Because input buffering is such a disaster in all these products, and it was necessary to spam inputs in many cases, this is ingrained into me in many different ways, whereas constantly reinforced the notion that the more I mash, the more reliable the input will be when the window comes up. The problem is that in those games you could change your inputs when that window did come up. So if you put in an incorrect input, you could change it by the time that window was available. You can't do that in Naraka. If you push parry at any point during your attack animation after it starts, it's going to buffer that parry for a very long time. In contrast, it won't buffer hold charging at all, so I just simply can't hold charge through people on any ping, because my ping is just too high. So if they perform a soft combo, I'm not going to be able to hold charge through it, because the buffering doesn't work. So not only am I dealing with the fact that I have been trained on extremely bad habits, I am also retarded, and the game's buffering is also retarded. It wouldn't shock me if many of the players in this game who walked into it and had reasonable skills within it at my hours probably had some degree of FG experience prior to doing so. But because my experience comes predominantly from the FPS, the RTS, and other isometric products, and then World of Warcraft, I have to relearn every single thing I was ever taught or ever learned through my entire life if I am to make this game work for me, even in the slightest. The reality is, I have to train myself out of trying to parry, and then train myself to be able to recognize opportunities when parrying is permitted. I'm not entirely sure how to go about doing this, but I don't think it's going to be something that can be accomplished in as short a time as a year or two. It's something that's going to have to be a dedicated regime over many years of play, and it's unlikely I'm going to stick with the game that long at my current rate of frustration and the current rate of the game's deadness in North America. It'll honestly shock me if the North American servers are even running in another year. I think 24 Entertainment will eventually cut their losses, seeing as the game's player count has already plummeted dramatically all the way back to pre-F2P numbers, and it'll only continue going down, as there is no incentive for new blood to get into the game whatsoever. Even if that's the case, this is still something I would like to learn, something I would like to improve, and something I would like to overcome for as much time as I have left. Much like most other things I've had to deal with in my life, there will be no revelation. There will be no switch that is flipped that suddenly says, I understand what the fuck to do in this game. It's going to be extremely long and extremely hard fought. And I don't think a strategy exists in which I can learn any of the skills necessary, or any of the things I've outlined thus far. There is no magic solution, and since I don't really have a dedicated coach outside of Mucky, there isn't any way for me to try to learn this stuff. And I don't think Mucky's quite at the stage in terms of a tutor where he can really teach me the things I need to know, especially since he's still trying to learn them himself. He also doesn't play as regularly anymore, and he's got other things going on. Our third player, Tiralina aka HKS, crashes out pretty regularly anytime we actually try to play this, understandably so, and he also crashed out during this brief play session. Transformers and everything related made him quite frustrated, and he also isn't the kind of person to really put in intense training time. I'm willing to put in intense training time myself, but I need to know it's going to be for something, and that I'll get something out of it. Spamming combos on a bot within training doesn't do me any good. I don't learn anything. And the ping in FPS in training is not reflective of what I get in Battle Royale, solos or otherwise. It just feels like a complete waste of time to me. And a lot of the things I've tried to train, like Carousel and 211, I've never been able to perform reliably at all. It just feels like a waste of time. And parrying the bot, I feel like that this is something that has given me unrealistic expectations of how parrying functions in this game. Because it is simply not possible to parry 9 out of 10 players the way that you parry bots in this. You can't read their animations unless they have ping as low as a mortal, but FPS as low as mine. But even if their ping is high and animation speed is low, that still creates clusterfucks, like trying to parry people and it taking at least a second for it to resolve. This occurs quite often, even though it really shouldn't. Mucky showed me how you do crossing, which is the act of dashing behind someone, either to avoid something or to avoid something in an attempt to parry. I've been able to accidentally do it a few times, but it's such a strange series of inputs, and it isn't really as reliable as it should be, so I haven't really been able to get it into my skill set, and I probably won't be able to for quite some time. Nonetheless, it is one of the most important things I probably should be trying to figure out. But you can see, even in these videos here, that the parrying just doesn't make any fucking sense at all half the time. You're gonna see me constantly hitting the G button, which is parry. I'll often even hear it, but I'll get nothing. This shit just shouldn't fucking happen. But it does. And that inconsistency makes the process of learning how to play the game so much more difficult than it should be. Because when nothing works like it should, you don't really have any expectations for how to do things, for what is successful, for what is a recipe for getting through the game without being extraordinarily frustrated. But we just go through the game being extraordinarily frustrated, because nothing fucking works like it should. I don't even think the majority of people who end up killing me are really that good. I see a lot of flaws in their play, and I see a lot of ways I could have punished them, or at least could have put up more of a fight. But retrospect is so much different than actually playing the game. When I'm playing the game, I'm in a mad dash. You can't really see it through the inputs, but I'm often very confused and having a hard time following what's actually going on. There's a few reasons for this. First of all, the lighting is really fucked in this game. Not just because I have the graphic settings on low, but because it's just a very ugly looking game. There's a distinct lack of shadow casting and other things going on that would make it a little bit more readable. So the depth perception is weird. This is also a problem when the weapon's hit collision is 3 or 4 times the size of its actual graphic, which is especially the case for weapons like the dual blades and longswords. I come into the game with a series of narrow-sighted expectations, like the collision is going to match the graphics, and things will occur when they visually look like they should. Playing with bots for so long has also warped this expectation as well, but you would think having played ranked for over 1,000 matches would have given me the ability to register some of the differences and do something more with it. But it hasn't. It's just made me more and more confused and frustrated than anything. And every single time we play against compositions like this, I wonder why the fuck I even bother playing the game at all. There's just nothing exciting about Transformers whatsoever. Great, you gained a bunch of free HP and now ignore all the game mechanics I've been trying to learn. So now I have to just run away, and if I can't, I guess I just die. Very exciting. Very wonderful. And let me be the first to say, this game should be enforcing cross-region locking. People from EU, C, and anywhere else should not be signing into our servers. It's laggy enough without them contributing. Maybe fix your delta timers and network performance, and you might actually see people wanting to play the game from their respective regions and stay within those regions, as opposed to griefing people by server hopping because their queues are only alive for a couple of hours a day.
Until you're crashing.
Yeah, it's probably gonna blow up again. Nope, there we go. I get connecting, spinning, and then that's it.
Alright, well.
I mean, I load out of
Not gonna be
that
able to hot
eventually,
drop
but
us.
yeah.
I don't, it'll just hang forever. It's the good shit. Well tested.
Why am I always the one being slapped?
Why not?
Because you're a cat. Cats love being slapped. There's a bottom mask.
Oh no.
Bot hopping in the window.
What the fuck are they doing?
I see hopping as my first thing in this game.
一緒に楽しみましょう
What the fuck are you doing, Toaster-chan? The new Maelstrom map they added is taking the game in a tremendously wrong direction. The red weapons are ridiculously powerful, allow you to kill NPCs that populate islands, separating chunks of the map. NPCs that will happily attack you if you happen to revive too close to ledges, even though they're far outside of render range. The red weapons are massive snowball instruments, and if you win the Nexus area, you also get all the loot of everyone you killed, on top of the heightened luck in the boxes that are in those areas. Chances are the person who wins the first Nexus round is probably going to win the game. This is especially common in team games, unless people happen to fuck up really badly. The advantages you get is just much too massive. The map itself is terribly built. Shit is fucked everywhere on it. Floating geometry, busted textures, giant empty, flat lands with nothing on it. Loot isn't properly distributed. Actually crossing around the map takes fucking forever. Mid-game tends to slow down quite a lot. And then there's the crashing. The map will 9 times out of 10 crash me in the lobby. And then I've also had a GPU crash me in the actual map itself. Bots don't go into the Nexus, so if you're doing quick match or bot mode, you can't even do the event for killing things in the Nexus because bots won't spawn in there. This map is just a disaster end to end from all angles. Not the least of which because they pushed in this Rift shit that they had in their other extraction mode that nobody plays because it's filled with hackers, so they brought it here instead. It's just a mess. Frankly, I don't know if we're going to be playing trios that much anymore. HK seemed pretty adamant about giving up on the whole thing. Again, I don't blame him very much. But regardless of that, it stands to reason I have no fucking idea what I'm doing, regardless of the game mode. What we're going to see here is a fucking embarrassment. Justina's thing there has effect, even though it's not even visible in that area. Parrying that blue follow-up is just impossible. Parrying the other blue also did not happen. And eventually, I died to a player who really just wasn't that good. Because I was worse. So much worse. I don't know how to fight against dual blades, especially because I find that dual blades is one of the most impossible weapons to parry. And yet, everybody uses it because it's one of the most powerful weapons in the game. So most of the time I'm forced to fight dual blades, I'm either going to get ping checked by white spam, or I'm going to get destroyed by being unable to parry the blues. I don't know how to play dual blades myself, and whenever I try to play it, I seem to fuck up everything and get parried. So what's the difference? I have begun to think that dual blades is just exposing a greater flaw in my mindset and playstyle that applies to all weapons, and can be seen throughout these video productions, and that is I don't know really how to deal with hold checking. Rather, it's less about hold checking in itself, and its blues as a body. There's a lot of cases I will roll out of a blue, looking to get a react parry or put out distance, but I will for some reason move back in, possibly because of root motion from holding my own blue and not realizing that's going to cause me some headaches. Since I just don't really pay attention to what my inputs are doing, I'm just gonna get fucked by that constantly. Just within the span of this recording alone, it happens again and again and again. Especially when I'm trying to parry a 1-2-3 longsword from Mucky, this happens constantly. Even though a lot of the things that happen within trios and duos can be excessively frustrating, like third partying, which is just a part of the game, but a lot of the class imbalances and so on, or the fact that HKS maybe isn't as conscious of the macro situation as we are, or isn't really paying attention to what's going on in the fight as we are, or because somebody gets tunnel visioned or whatever. I always try to focus on just what can I do as an individual? What can I do to improve my contributions? This is the way I've always tried to do things. And the reality is that most of the time I feel like I can't really contribute that much at all. I'm just a sidekick, an extra. Every now and then I provide a little bit of CC, but it is extremely rare that I actually manage to do anything meaningful in terms of progressing the game. We're pretty much both just asides for Mucky, and he's the one doing all the legwork. Oftentimes, I feel more like a burden than an assistant. This is predominantly because in 99% of cases, duos will end up into a series of 1v1s, and I will lose almost every 1v1 I am placed into. In trios, in which the skill cap is so much higher and the players playing it are of a such higher caliber, this situation is even worse. I will lose every single 1v1, and HKS is basically freelo. Every now and then we manage to get in surprise parries, or a combo attack that just happens to stroke luck like lightning striking twice, getting in extra damage and finishing in someone before they can do anything meaningful, evening out the playing field somewhat. But in the vast majority of cases, we're just outclassed enormously. As good as Mucky is, he's still not at that level either. There are still roadblocks for all of us in trying to improve, and knowing how and where to begin making that road. It feels inaccessible, unapproachable, unobtainable, because there's no real form or shape to it. There's no real direction for us to go in. At the same time, however, it seems like people will underestimate me more often in duos and trios than in solos. Almost every single player I run up against in solos is always going to be playing their A game. I'm never going to find Hypernova on a bad day, but plenty of players of a high caliber within duos and trios have given me victories they never should have, and it's in large part because they just didn't really pay attention, threw a blue somewhere that they shouldn't have, gave me something they shouldn't have, and that's where my punishment mentality can suddenly take effect. I can follow people's mindsets and understand to an extent when they have a shift in mindset and how to exploit that. That's not really something I can exploit in solos, but it is something I have exploited in the team matches, knowing who to single out and why. What I have noticed watching Hypernova, Numza, and others is that they have a certain strength that I had in certain products prior to Naraka, and that is consistency. Consistency is one of the most important skills. I have a high level of skill knowledge in this game. I know at least what makes a competent player in it. I may not be able to perform it, but I know what the path to being able to perform it looks like. For example, controlling your inputs, but most importantly, making certain decisions, knowing when to try to parry and when to try to dodge. I'm aware of a lot of these things, just by extent of watching, and sometimes talking to individuals. But I can't really perform it that well. You will see every now and then I will do something that looks pre-science. I will look like I premeditated something well. And then you have encounters like in this game, where even though I've been able to do 1v3s in the past, in this game, I just perform absolutely terribly. And we will lose in part because of that. I just won't do well. I won't attempt to use the nunchuck's right focus. I won't really try to take control of this situation. I will try to whittle down my opponents, afraid of committing to something. And yet, in spite of the fact we have HKS healing us, we're unable to win this 2v2. It's sad. Honestly, it's a little pathetic. I'm just forced to disengage. I will go over to Mucky to try to assist him, but it won't be successful. I constantly fuck up wave dashing, months after I've recognized that I'm doing the inputs wrong. It doesn't matter, it still won't work at least half the time I try to do it. Turns out, Mucky's fighting an entirely different team. In order to be consistent, you must first be comfortable. And my discomfort with the game shows itself first and foremost in the lack of consistency. Input consistency comes through a learned muscle memory, but it also has to do with comfort. You will only rely on muscle memory once you are comfortable doing so. And so I have not managed to obtain muscle memory in nearly anything with Naraka, despite an enormous amount of time placed into it. And yet I've also failed to become comfortable. Naraka feels like an endless source of frustrations. Many people swear by the combat and the gameplay of PvP within Naraka, but I have only found it exceptionally irritating at the best of times. Sure, it's nice to win, but even high-level players aren't going to win most of the time, unless their name is Hypernova or Numza. And then you have shit like this, where they just constantly push out completely untested garbage that affects all users, and drags the whole experience even further down. This is amazing, but... What? What the fuck? Dude, I logged into seeing a bot stuck to the wall right underneath me. Just like a moth. Part of the reason why there's such a massive level and discomfort for Naraka is, of course, the time investment. You spend anywhere from 5 to 20 minutes trying to put a match together, only to lose it because you make 1 or 2 bad decisions. And sometimes you don't even make bad decisions. Sometimes you just encounter Tarka, who is permitted to cancel animations and infinite you constantly, even though the developer allegedly at one point said they were trying to do something about the TODs in this game. Tarka was buffed instead. When you are at a high skill level in Naraka, the time investment isn't as big of an issue, because you can actively seek out more fights, you can hot drop, and you can reliably participate in the game more often. The path to becoming high level is not so clear, however. You would like to be able to do hot drops and participate in the game, so you could try to learn it. However, if all you're doing is just dying regardless of if you hot drop or not, then you don't really learn anything anyways. You never really be able to figure out what the solution to winning actually is. This is supposed to be the void that customs fills. Within customs, you can ignore all the respawning, looting, and running around, and focus just on fighting. But something I've heard often is that a lot of people's customs experience makes the Battle Royale experience very warped. Obviously, their macro skill changes a lot because they haven't really interacted with it that much. However, there's a lot of people who also just perform worse in Battle Royale than customs anyways, either due to the performance differences or because of the connotations implied by the things I've been discussing thus far. Battle Royale makes them uncomfortable. And I've run into a few players that I've managed to defeat that are capable of doing TODs and other such things, predominantly within customs. This includes the likes of Immortal that I was able to beat twice in a row, and although I've been able to beat people like Pep3R and Gen Monarch, they have shown in various video productions and within the Penglai arena that they are certainly capable of much better mechanics than I am. However, my win rate against them in Battle Royale is 100%. Mucky is a player with extremely strong consistency, not just in customs, but in Battle Royale. There was a few times he's been in my ranked games and within my quick matches, and I've had to face him in actual gameplay, of which I've only been able to beat him just a handful of times, and that was even during periods where he was much rustier than I was. The reality is that his experience within these kinds of games has always been a lot higher than mine, and his gameplay within products like Dark Souls have also always been a lot stronger than mine have been. I'm still not entirely sure why, but I know it's not just an experience thing. It also has to do with the fact he's been playing games much more consistently than I have over the years. Times he's not playing Naraka, he's often involved in something else. He's kept his mind sharp and active, and age hasn't affected him the way it has me. To put it in perspective, the only time I was ever able to actually consistently beat him was in StarCraft 2, and it took several years to be able to reach that point, and that was because he didn't play StarCraft 2. He's taking it easy on me in these games, but unfortunately, even though we've played against each other for some hours now, I still don't really feel like I've improved at all in the last year. Perhaps one of the worst and most easily avoided losses in the entire history of the last 2 months is this particular game. We come into here fairly well geared and equipped, but we're going to be up against a team of predominantly Transformers. Our initiation goes quite well. We deal quite a bit of damage and force the Yue Shan to disengage. If he has to ult inside this building, it's probably going to be a waste. He ults, and I start working on the Tianhai instead. The Justina will freeze us, and my allies will take a little bit of damage, mostly HKS. HKS goes down, but it's not bad yet because we have a lot of them quite low. HKS is going to be just stuck there. Yue Shen is going to run away. I attempt to engage him, but every single time I try to go out the window, nothing will happen instead. This results in Tianhai grabbing the both of us, even though he has no right doing so. I'm forced to disengage, and I'm trying to heal while staying away from the Tianhai. Tianhai, however, is going to come over here and interrupt my heal as Mucky fights the other character. I managed to catch Tianhai with a Merciless Havoc and then a Vertical. This is going to result in Tianhai eventually dying to a combination of trolls. At this stage, Mucky is going to die 1v2. At this stage, I can't really save my team, and the map is close enough that I probably can't really revive them either. I decide to go down for Mucky because they're down ults and I might be able to beat them, but I have to kill them quickly if I'm going to revive him. The Justina comes to engage me. I'm going to ult her, and she falls down and is going to be disabled by my ult. They've already healed back the armor. Mucky was telling me that they were not healing for a while, which is initially why I came down here. I already know I can beat either of these players 1v1, But 1v2 is a little bit of a different story, so I need to kite them and deal some damage. So far, so good, but I get kind of cucked by terrain and he's able to avoid the 1-2-3. Justina's ult invariably saves him. I'm gonna parry her and everything seems to be quite well. I almost get trolled by the emote menu again. I'm gonna get multiple parries in here, but I'm constantly knocked out of them for any given reason. The Justina's doing a fairly reasonable job of peeling off of this, and I attempt to parry for no reason. My ult's gonna come out, that jabbing for some reason does not kill you, eh Shan? And now he gets his ult back. At this stage I've already accepted I can't do anything because you can't get away from him once he ults and there's nothing to climb up. All of this was because I was unable to get out of the window. Also, the fact that the active transforming drops enchant is really stupid. The only possibly good fight I have in the entire 2 months in ranked is going to be this one. A Tessamir in Yang. For some reason, I go into Yang even though it's historically a bad idea, but a mirror match isn't too bad. Indeed, because you can initiate first with your ult, you get a lot of pacing advantage in this. You either force them to waste their ult or something else. And at the same time, you can counter ult them in turn, wasting some other time. It's a very calm engagement and probably the easiest of all the matchups. However, this is going to be ruined by running into this very laggy zipping. This zipping is probably a server hopper that has turned off the display of the black bars. And when attempting to parry her, it's basically impossible 90% of the time. After I die to this fight, I will watch Hypernova fight him and get trolled in a very similar manner. Initially, I'm able to get off the parries because I'm parrying early, and it seems like I'll probably be fine. But it becomes apparent when he parries me at a frame-perfect timing that it's not going to be that easy to finish this fight. Never mind the fact that I'm extremely bad and can't navigate over ledges very well at all. As you can see, the attacks are hitting me well before the effect are coming towards me, and I get killed telepathically. Each of the last 3 blues I attempted to parry with a whip sword, which is the same as a longsword, the fastest frame parrying animation in the entire game. I've been able to frame parry even console players with this, but not this zipping. No, dash parrying isn't some kind of magical solution. You can still be hit through it. This is a battle I will win, but I don't really feel that good about it because it takes so fucking long to win it. I will immediately get a parry off on this Syrah. She will then take the Soul Bloom from the bot because I forgot to take it. I failed to get over the wall the first time, missing some possible damage from my enchant, although I have engraving. Her ult will come out, and I won't really do a good job of avoiding it. Although I won't get trolled too heavily, I definitely could have been punished way more than I was. If this was someone like Hypernova, I would have already been dead, because I wasn't able to put distance in fast enough. At the same time, you don't want to put too much distance that you lose track of them. I'm able to get catches, but I'm not able to get the parry that I needed to finish the fight at that point. I will ult again and get another catch. I'll use engraving, which is probably the first time I've ever really remembered to use it consistently, outside of one bot match I insta-gibbed a console player. She will end up reviving and I won't get a chance to repair, which means that the compromised damage will make finishing this fight a lot more painful. My ult will miss her, although it eats the stun. At this stage, the fight is going to become kind of a mess, and getting a hold of her is going to be much more problematic than it really should be. There's no reason I should have this difficulty in chasing her. For some reason, she never went to the armor resets. The main reason why I turned around and went back is because I thought she was going around the building to get the armor reset. For some reason, she doesn't do that. She ends up going somewhere else, and I have no idea where, until I happened by chance to run across from her flailing around absolutely uselessly. She will continue to run away, very possibly because she's out of consumables, and was healing using gray consumables. Again, I'll cut through this building thinking she's going for the armor reset, but it's very obvious that she didn't actually figure out where that was. I will check her old body in case she's trying to get her old loot. At this point, I've just assumed that I've completely lost sight of her because, well, I'm a fucking moron. It turns out she did go back to her body. I thought she was going to hold check me there, but she ends up leaving her blue, and she could have gotten a free hit. She will continue to run away and give me another catch that I do nothing with, and then attempt to straight blue me yet again. This was obviously a very new player, but I shouldn't have been able to kill him so easily, failing as much as I did. It's not just about being able to beat players that are higher level or around your skill level. It's about being able to do so convincingly. At any point, this guy could have walked away and just continued the game elsewhere, and I would have been none the wiser because I'm bad at chasing. The embarrassment will only get so much worse from here on in this match. I'm going to run into an Akos that is using gray armor and gray weapons. I have no idea until I actually start initiating on him with an early parry. In fact, in all likelihood, if I took those fist weapons, he would have had no weapon. It was obvious this was a clear revive. I almost get a kill off of him, but I'm not able to do anything with my F. I'm not able to knock him off the charm because it's already gone. Due to the latency, people will actually have deactivated the charm on their end before my end is registered. I don't know how to deal with his ult, and I try to parry something that doesn't exist. I'm trying to tap dodge out of things, but I'm not very good at it. For some reason, his F is able to hit me through the pillar, and that's it. I lost to someone in literal gray shit. I already know that this match is over, but I don't really realize how over it is. The instant I revive, there will be a hypernova on me, as though he was stream sniping a non-existent stream. I have no idea what to do at this point. He just dodges everything, every single blue turns into a bait, and just like that, I'm already dead. Fun game. This is a hot drop in which inarguably the lowest skilled player is substantially higher skill level than I am. This player here obviously has some kind of ping advantage over me, and there's nothing I can do about it. This match is already over, so I may as well revive and get it done with. When I encounter someone like that, I know I'm not going to win, so I don't see a point in continuing to play the game. I will try to sass him, and I do manage to blue him through the revive, but he's eventually going to get away because he's just able to jump up off the ground and get priority on me. I don't know how that is possible or why it happens. It makes no sense, but I would have been able to kill him there if I didn't parry him for no reason at all. But since I did, I don't get the kill. Instead, I'll be forced to fight Gen Monarch instead. Gen Monarch is going to get trolled in somewhat of a similar fashion, and he falls for the half charge and is easily killed. This is something I was able to do to him a couple times in Penglai Arena, but his win rate against me in that is much higher. Parrying in this game is stupid. I'll end up running into Monarch again in this game, and the fight is going to go pretty similarly to the first one. He's able to get out my skill, but I'm able to troll him a few times with blues. He's willing to run it a little less, but I'm able to pull out a few parries, and then I swipe him with the horizontal. At this stage, Cheryl would be kind of a problem, but because I am Tessa, I can kind of do this, and then avoid hitting her and waste a little bit of time. If she had stuck to hard aggro, I might have been able to survive, but I would have taken a lot more damage. Later in the match, I'll run into a random roomie, who is probably similar in skill to I am. I will miss literally everything and accomplish nothing. Every time I'm hit by the dagger, I'm rubber banded awkwardly, making the game hard to read. But I'm able to get in some damage from my ult, and because I'm using Blazing Cyclone, I can nerf any healing she will do. She obviously didn't try to parry that when it really mattered, or she just got ping checked. These are some of the only low-level players I'm gonna run into in the entire day. I watch Hypernova mow through console players left and right, and it just doesn't matter. On my end, I get predominantly these unrivaled Azuras, many of which who are very laggy and pretty much impossible to parry. You wouldn't know, but these recordings were just from the other day, after I did my test recordings for my FPS design video. You wouldn't know I had any experience playing a shooter whatsoever if you watched me trying to aim ranged weapons in Naraka. I don't know why, but I find them absolutely impossible to aim. there's a good chance it's because the projectiles appear server-side, and their origin, trajectory, and destination are all governed server-side. Since my ping is so high, it makes it even more delayed than it normally would be. It doesn't seem to be a problem that people like Hypernova or Numza have, and they're people with low ping. Meanwhile, I have no idea what I'm doing against this guy at all. Not to mention that some of the daggers' collision seems to be kind of absurd. There is a lot of technical nuances in this game that really feel unintended. The purple strike on the staff having larger collision, for example. That's something that probably just shouldn't happen. The fact you can just fireball someone and instantly get rid of enchant. That's also something that really shouldn't happen. The fact you can parry someone in the air a good distance above the collision. That's also something that shouldn't happen. When I see these things back to back, I just give up. And then in my next map, I go into Maelstrom, which means, yup, I crash again. Great. And then as I navigate the match and I start heading past the NPC, I'm gonna get a GPU crash. Yup, I crashed twice in the same match for no particular reason. I go through all this frustration, all this bullshit, and over 15 minutes of absolute nonsense, not to mention the half-hour queue times, to run into a shale that's just gonna end up parry robbing me in the end anyways. I'm gonna force her off of my charm will trigger, I'll get in some damage, she's gonna get free damage off of her ult because she gets to do that, I'll get in the parry, may as well trade for it. She gets in a parry, I knock her away, there's her shield, hooray! There's the oh, wait! LOL! Personally, I'm of the opinion that you shouldn't hear the parry go off if it didn't go off. But this is a constant. It's in almost every single one of my videos. I'll hear it, I'll even see the red flash in many cases, and I just won't get the parry. You're getting this reinforcement for something that isn't working because this game was never tested. I mean, should we be shocked that the Mr. Black cartoon airs at 2 to 3 a.m. because they couldn't be asked to adjust the localization? And that it has no subtitles or translation whatsoever? Not even a basic bitch Google Translate? No. 24 Entertainment doesn't give two fucks about any region outside of China, and frankly, it's very debatable if they even give a fuck about China. Their incompetence is immeasurable, and that's happening globally. I don't mind losing. I'm going to lose. That's part and parcel of coming into such a gentrified community to begin with. I'm accustomed to dying to Monkey and Brood War hundreds of times over. Dude, I've played League of Legends with randoms. It just fucking happens. What really pisses me off is how inconsistent the entire experience is. I'm going through the motions of putting in the grind and the time, and I'm learning absolutely nothing from it at all. There is no path for me forward in this game. If I'm not fighting the ping or the performance, I'm fighting the controls. So many things that happen in this game happen entirely unintentionally. You feel like you have to learn an entirely new skill set just to weave your way around the awkwardness of how this game does things. Everything from how the crouch canceling is handled to the fact we have 3 different types of dashes are all entirely unnecessary. Every single thing related to the wall climbing, the mantling, the grappling, and the mounting in this game is filled with bugs, and the controls for it are awkward as fuck. This is shit to be fixed, not something that you have to spend months, if not years, trying to train yourself around. And the fact the developer can't recognize this is again plain and simple incompetence, if not outright malice. This doesn't make the skill ceiling for the game higher, it just makes it more tedious. You spend more time trying to figure out your way in dealing with the bullshit of the game, rather than learning how to play the game. Why does the Collision of Soulbreak have such an insane vertical hitbox to it? Why am I in a lobby with a J-Cup player? when Hypernova is farming console players? Nothing about this game makes any fucking sense. It's at the point where if I see certain player names in my lobby, I will just suicide, because I know I'm not going to win. If I see Evalda, I just give up immediately. I'm not going to win. This is just shit I can't interact with. I don't belong here. Give me a lobby I can actually play. The main problem, beyond anything, is I can't find opponents who are anywhere near my skill level. The rare time that I do, it is just once in a blue moon. And usually I'm too tilted by the time I run into them to play to my strengths to begin with. Since I don't feel any reward, I don't have a real system in mind for what works and what doesn't work. I know that everything I do doesn't work. That's as much as I know. But I don't have a path forward, because anytime I do manage to kill someone, it's clearly someone who doesn't belong in a lobby with me in the opposite direction. It's people who just shouldn't be in my game. But since nobody plays the game and the game's matchmaking is fundamentally broken, it's a shock to discover that most people will just end up quitting at that point. So you just have the lower rung that is in constant volatility and an ever-shrinking player base, and then a large geriatric peak with players who have been playing since the game first came out because they're the top dogs, so they actually get to enjoy the game, whereas everybody else who comes across them is basically forced to quit. I've heard a lot of people complain about target priority and stuff like that in regards to the NA region, and while I've seen that once or twice, I'm nowhere near the skill level where I can even recognize that as a problem yet. I'm at this stage where I'm just trying to figure out how the fuck you interact with any players, much less two at a time. I haven't even gotten to the point where I can really consider the whole battle royale aspect yet. I've been trying to expose myself to that by doing things like hot drops, but I still feel like that the macro element really isn't something that I worry about nearly as much as the fact that I just can't beat any of these players straight up. I can sometimes get close. I can very often bring Immortal to half or lower, but actually finishing the fight, actually winning, that just never really seems to happen. I'll always make that one mistake that I still don't really fully understand how to avoid. I will always fail to do something that I should have done, or I will just take chip damage I have no right taking. There's always some kind of real major fundamental flaw that I just don't understand. Or in many cases I do understand, and I just can't do anything with that information. I've started to believe that a lot of my difficulty tracking certain things, like ability cooldowns and what certain classes and characters can do, and in fact I'll just very commonly forget that characters have skills, to just straight up honest to God brain damage. I feel like that perhaps maybe I had a stroke at some point. Maybe I have some kind of issue. In either case, I just can't track things in this game like I did in League of Legends. And I just have no idea why. I have no idea how to push things forward from this point. And frankly, I don't think it's even possible. Sure, I've given thought to playing other characters. I could try to play Syra again, Justina. I can even try Tumulch again. Perhaps I could play the new hero that's just absolutely busted. But I honestly don't really think that the hero matters that much in this point. Yeah, it sucks that everybody avoids Tessa's ult and her F really isn't that good, but there are times it helps me out too. I don't think that that's the deciding factor here. Honestly, I don't even think about the hero matchups that much at all, which is perhaps one of the reasons why I also still struggle tracking skills. Because I'm not at a stage where I can worry about hero matchups, it's not something that really enters my cognitive understanding, which means that actually tracking it is difficult when I need it, which is still every fight. Gotta be honest though, the number one most frustrating thing I had to deal with was the Maelstrom map crashing me constantly. It's one thing to have to wait 30, 40, 50 minutes on average just to end up in a lobby with Misu, Hypernova, or Immortal, or all of the above in it, much less people like Heis or Hekea. But then just to have to sit through these fucking loading screens and crashing constantly on top of it, the game just wants me to quit. And frankly, I'm inclined to oblige. I have to admit that duos is just more interesting of a game type. Solos is agony. Until they added an FPS cap, fix the delta timers, or something to just deal with the people running X3D processors getting massively unfair advantages. And do something about the fucking netcode. It just feels like solos is an exercise in masochism. Trios really isn't much better, with all the smurfs, server hoppers, and latency issues exasperated in that game type 1,000-fold. Everything in trios is just a fucking shit show. We win once in a blue moon, but the second we end up in champion fight, it'll be right back to the shitter again. Duos is okay, because even when we were in champion fight, I was able to play off of Mucky's strengths and sometimes help him win. But that was really about it. That was still enough to actually interact with the game in at least some of the encounters. But once you hit champion fight, once again, you're entering a lot of the Numza duos and things like that you just can't really interact with because their performance advantages are so massive. It's just more common in solos because the player pool in solos is so much smaller. Only about 15 to 20 people really play solos, at least midway through the season, and early on you're not likely to run into any of the new players either. Again, I was watching Hypernova during my exceptionally long queues, and he was constantly running into console players that had no idea what they were doing, and a smattering of people that were around my skill level. Obviously, absolutely no challenge to him, but players I wished I could have been fighting. But I never saw those players, ever. These were players in several of his champion fights. And yet, at my ranking, I would just run into people with fucking J-Cup logos. Why? The game is actively splitting up these players and preventing people from an equal skill level from facing against each other. That's the only logical conclusion you can make, is that something intentional is going on, designed to frustrate people and keep them out of the game. It's as though 24 Entertainment is setting up the North American server for closure and doing their best to keep the player base from growing. I would say they're doing a pretty good job of that. And then, again, while watching Neko-chan 420, the Xbox queue system is completely different from the PC queue system on Quick Match. On PC, you will always get a fixed 4-minute forced queue, and you will only see other players in that queue if they're actually queued at the exact same time that you are. But on the Xbox, it'll actually try to form lobbies with real people. Why isn't that a feature on the PC? Isn't that what the fucking queuing system is supposed to be doing? I guess not. You know what Naraka reminds me a lot of? These fucking instant hint challenges that are in Perfect Dark. They are literally just there to be tedious and frustrating. They push you far away from what the game's mechanics and gameplay are supposed to be about, and instead have you doing stupid shit to cheese your way through them, like camping corners and taking advantage of multi-hit weapons to pierce the shields that the bots tend to spawn with. You just sit there and insta-gib them, because if you don't, then the bot's reflexes are gonna insta-gib you. It is Rocket Tag in a nutshell. Naraka is a lot like that at a high level. Any given encounter with Tarka is gonna see you TOD'd unless you have an escape. Then that just adds one extra step to his TOD. This is the least fun way to play a game. But I can't even get to the point where I'm even really worried about TODs half the time, because I'm still trying to figure out the nuances of how to interact with the base game at all. But since I don't get the opportunity to do that very often, and the vast majority of players have done it so much that they can just intrinsically know what I'm going to do before I even know what I'm going to do, the ladder is not even reachable for me to climb. I can't even see it. I know where a lot of the problems dwell, but if I'm ever going to get the muscle memory or skills to actually begin to tackle those challenges, I have to be able to figure out where that ladder is. But it doesn't seem that that's going to happen. My hours in the game continue to mount up. I continue to attempt different strategies, and none of them are having any impact. I just don't know what to do from this point. Yes, the fucking ammo crate did save him. Some of the shit that happens in this game can be exceptionally silly and entertaining. I can't say I haven't enjoyed all of my time with it, but at the same time, the amount of frustration I've had certainly outweighs the gains. I would like to be able to get to the point where I can start to appreciate what is supposedly a good product, what is supposedly enjoyable to play. But in order to reach the point where it becomes enjoyable, it seems like I have a Herculean task ahead of me that is not within my physical or mental ability to accomplish. Now, whether or not that's because I mentally have some kind of disability, or because it's incompatible with my playstyle or mindset, or because I have such a massive mountain to overcome in terms of relearning everything I once knew about gaming, I'm not really sure yet. But whatever the case is, 1,400 hours into the game, I may as well have just started yesterday. That's certainly what I feel like. And every single time I recognize something I need to improve, I'm not actually able to action upon that improvement. You can see that Mucky is able to troll me with the dual blades over and over and over and over and over and over again. He has been doing this a lot for months, because we've been trying to figure out why I'm so bad at dealing with the dual blades. In reality, as I shouldn't be entertaining the blues at all. Hypernova said to use the repair dodge to get away from blues, but I forget that that's even a thing. It just feels like a terribly designed mechanic, an oversight that the developer should have fixed years ago, so intrinsically it doesn't really enter my mind that often, but unintended mechanics that define the game was in part a lot of what made Brood War such a success as well. It's just part and parcel of the devil that you have to live with. So at the same time, I have to figure out how to actually interact with these things and introduce them into my skill set. But even though I've been trying to practice them, it doesn't ever enter my mind to actually try to use them in a real game. A lot of the time it's because of the unreliability and the discomfort in doing so. But how to work past that is also a mystery. I feel like I'm staring into a black box, a void. I just have no idea what I should be even attempting to do at this point. If there is anything I can attempt to do. I have been looking to find those custom rooms with I'm near X and so on again that I can continue my shenanigans with them at weird hours in the morning when insomnia is at its worst. But they seem to have quit, so that's another avenue that is absent to me. I'd like to think in a normal and honest-to-God world I'd be working on D&D, trying to work on my shooter project, or otherwise being more productive than I have been, rather than trying to play solos in this game again. But the reality is that I'm in such a state of mind where I can't focus on doing that right now. There's too much going on in my life and everything hangs on a knife's thread. Every day is a high-stress hellscape. So all I can really do is try to distract myself, which is predominantly why I've been doing this. The frustration overwhelms all the other sensations at a point, and I've been using that to try to bury the anxiety and the pain. But at the same time, it also brings up a lot of old questions that I realize I probably will never have an answer for. And perhaps my time with this game will always be relegated to such a role. Perhaps I never will reach a point where I can really feel content about my time with it. Certainly not for the amount of time spent. I'll keep trying to learn how to play this game. But I'm certainly losing hope that such a future is even possible. Wait, he's using V2?
鎧が壊れるたびに命の危険は増える。よし、少し良くなった。 敵だらけだぜ。あれは敵だらけだ。気合い入れていくぞ。
光の中に消え去る。
He already has his ult back? It's kind of crazy.
鎧が壊れるたびに命の危険は増える。この程度の傷は何ともない。慌てずに落ち着いていこう。
That's bad.
天を裂く雷撃。夏時が来た。強制の伊達じゃない。
Okay. Oh, dude had some shit on him.
次か。
Yeah, I was definitely out of my element trying to chase him with the ult. I had no idea what it was doing. I know that you spam dash and you just spam jump vertical, but I wasn't able to get as many jump verticals as I've seen Numba do. I don't know if that was like a stamina management issue or if I just wasn't putting in the inputs properly. V2 though, I don't know about that. I think if he used V1, I might have actually been in trouble at the end. What the hell is this bot doing? Oh, so I had Starfall. I could have used that and killed him with that. Probably like twice. The eagle was like, yeah, I'm gonna drown this rat and take some photos of him while he's drowning. What the fuck is this? Is that him? Yeah.
お前たちの命の道は俺が断ち切った。
Bose Rampage XX. That's a good name. I like it. It reads more like X Bozar Amp Age X. Where you at, dude? Oh, there you are. What's up, man? Wait, that's the Kylan? That's why he went nowhere. He had like no health. Okay, that parry did not go through. That one did. Thanks for the purple weapon. The bot. Alright, we still got someone else in here. Oh. He did come back.
お前たちの命の道は俺が断ち切った。
Dude shoots like incendiary arrows with a top-loaded magazine on a Glock or something. There's a few things I've noticed. First of all, holding the blue coming out of the dodge when trying to withdraw from a blue The root motion and magnetism tends to be what drags me back in. That might be one of the reasons why I get hit by the 1-2-3 longsword like 80 times a fight against Mucky. I don't know how to deal with it, because I think it's just something I've ingrained in because half charging never fucking works, so I'm always trying to hold something so that at least I'm holding it before I get hit, seeing as so many weapons like the dual swords have such an absolutely insane range to them. But it's obviously something that's leading to some unintended behavior. It also may be causing some unintended behavior in trying to come out and parry, although I've heard in some cases using it to redirect yourself into a parry is actually a good idea, particularly when crossing, as it's the motion that'll bring you close enough to get that collision in front of you, and into their collision. Beyond that, I don't really know. Immortal says there's a lot of muscle memory involved, everything is second nature. This makes sense, it's the case with a lot of different things. But how do I get muscle memory? How do I train myself? I've been trying to do things in training, but it just doesn't really seem to be helping that much. Is there some other way I can reinforce other than this? Or am I just simply mentally broken? I am Canadian after all, I'm working from below zero when it comes to intelligence. But there has to be some way to make this work. Isn't there? I don't know. But that's the mystery I need to solve. Else, I will truly get nothing from this experience. The exceedingly rare time I get people in quick match, it remains the most enjoyable part to the game at this stage. Although most of the time they're not at my level, they're still close enough that I have to pay attention to what I'm doing. One of the things Immortal told me was that you could always try analyzing the battles you win. How did you win? What were the conditions that led to you winning? What did your opponent do wrong? This is something, of course, I consider in my analysis as well. But perhaps it's the only angle I really have at my disposal, rather than looking at the fights that I lose. Sure, I can understand the reasons why I lose a lot of times. For example, trying to parry Hypernova, he almost never lets the blues go initially. And at the same time, however, I don't really learn that much about it. The fights happen so quickly that the 1 or 2 mistakes is an instant death. And against Tarka, it's like, well, you can't really do anything anyways when he's ulted, because he just cancels out of fucking everything. If you don't get an initial stagger off and can TOD him, or otherwise hanging up for a long period of time, you're just not going to get anything out of the fight at all. Monkey's been trying to play Tarka in our training, even though he doesn't know how to play the hero and otherwise hates it. And all I've really learned from the experience thus far is that if Tarka gets close to you, you just automatically lose. Unless you happen to be someone of an extremely high skill level who can intrinsically predict when he's going to use his various gold focus abilities. And even if you do that, you still have to deal with the fact that he can cancel out of everything and TOD you at will. While Mikey hasn't been able to do that very consistently, there's still the fact that you can cancel out of things alone that makes him exceedingly powerful. TOD or not, he just breaks the game's mechanics. The only thing he can really do is try to slow down the fight, or if you're able to gain initiative, again TOD him yourself. But if he's given a chance, he's just allowed to completely break the game, and you can't interact with him at all at that point. But there's a lot of heroes that are like that. Einar Wang, the new hero that throws knives and has 80 million minutes of gold focus. All these heroes just basically force you to run away. Unless you're at that extremely high 0.01% of skill level on the server that is capable of just predicting everything they're going to do and tap dodging everything. I have seen it, and the game almost looks balanced from that lens, except it's not. The play rates and everything like that reflect a lot of the inner turmoil that the game faces in terms of balancing. This is just one of the many reasons why I try not to think of balance. Yes, Tarka et al. Are extremely unfun to play against, and the people who play them are basically trying to take the cheap way out of actually interacting with the game. But at the same time, you can try to focus on your neutrals in encounters that don't involve those characters. Focusing on neutrals first has always been my priority, at least outside of trios and duos, where I'm trying to focus more on how to best follow Mucky around. Perhaps that also lends to the success of those games, because I'm able to follow his success and figure out ways to make his success more successful, then his strengths become the priority, but there are cases where that doesn't really work. Evidently when he dies first, or we're facing two opponents of a skill level greater than I am, which is most often the case. If I'm not able to set him up, then we're just going to lose. I've never really been one to chase the meta outside of Epic 7. I've always been able to make what I feel like I can play well with work. League of Legends, Heroes of Storm, I made heroes that were conventionally non-meta picks work extremely well even in the most demanding of environments. All it really came down was knowing how to play them well. But I think with Naraka you can't approach it like that unless you have an extremely high skill level as it is, because that extremely high skill level is what will carry you. Someone like Hypernova or Immortal can play any hero they want, even Kurumi or other characters that you basically never see out of meme picks and solos. The fact that they don't have an escape outside of like V2 doesn't really change that much, and they don't even necessarily run those skills to begin with. When you can TOD someone on demand against a wall, it kinda really doesn't matter what hero you run. All you need to do is set up the conditions to enable that to happen. And if you have the ping in the FPS, that's even easier done than said. A lot of it does come down to muscle memory, of course, but there's more to it than that. There's the mindset that you came into by obtaining the muscle memory. That's the greatest hurdle to overcome, and not the muscle memory itself. If you can enter the mindset where you can begin the grind to obtaining muscle memory and refinement, you've already begun to overcome the most potent hurdle there is to becoming competent. But there's a variety of reasons why I doubt I'll never be able to obtain that. It could be related to the whole ADHD thing we discussed in previous projects. There could be other reasons I'm not able to focus well. It could be related to why I'm not able to focus as a creator. It could be related to my extremely high stress elsewhere in life. Who knows? I try not to think about aggravating factors like this, because it's something I can't control. I can't resolve if I have ADHD, I can't resolve autism, I can't resolve schizophrenia, I can't resolve anything that's happened. I'm not permitted access to medical resources. I just have to deal with things on my own. And if I can't overcome it with my own thoughts, my own mind, and my own strategies, then truly there is no hope. So I try to at least tell myself that I have some kind of future in some of these projects. And if I can at least become competent enough to assist us in duos, then that would be nice. But I'm so far from doing that. Raw time isn't the issue. I haven't gained anything by investing raw time. I'm so deep into the curve of diminishing returns that it's completely flatlined probably as of January or February last year. And I just don't know how to fix that. I can identify where a lot of weaknesses are by looking at videos, but applying those lessons is so much harder. It's virtually impossible at this stage. And that's the part that really frustrates me. I just don't know how to begin making important changes. Because I know what those changes are, I just don't know how they happen. Hypernova has repeatedly told me that he agrees with me about the state of the combos in this game, that they're both uninteresting and unhealthy for the game. He has stated to me he doesn't really focus that much on extensive combos in his gameplay, because they're slightly inconsistent even at a high level of performance. He tries to rely more on other things, and you can kind of see this in what he does. Even my fight against him in this video, as incredibly one-sided as it wasn't necessarily a single point of failure. It was a series of failures that I made. It's just that they occurred so quickly that it really just looked like the one instant kill. It's extremely easy to lay them out here. I'm attacked by Hypernova right away. I'm going to remove him from me using my F and try to catch him as he comes up. But he's entered a blue focus immediately on that attempt. I see this and I'll dodge out and attempt to react parry it. But I'm already much too slow. I see him move in and try to catch, so I try to ult. But he's already iframed it. I figured he was going to blue again because he hasn't blown his F and he can afford to attempt to. But on his end, this doesn't really make sense because I've already blown my F, and I've already shown I'm willing to attempt to parry him if he goes blue. So he does end up bluing me after that with a combo, and at that stage the fight is over. It's a series of multiple failures, but most of those failures were as a result of me attempting to deal with dual blades as I've been trying to deal with them to date. I always find that their blues are impossible to parry, so why would I try to do anything besides get the early parry in this? It's just instincts, but it's the wrong instinct. I will never be able to keep up with Hypernova in movements, because his animation speeds are faster, and his ping is a tiny fraction of mine. Events on his end occur so much faster than they do for me that he's just warping around in extremely strange ways, and the way that his blues appear for me is also somewhat inconsistent. And at the same time, he's also able to move much sooner than it looks like he should be able to. I have to think and approach this fight in a completely different way than I would even someone like Mucky, who also has a higher frame rate and lower ping than I am, but not nearly to the extent of Hypernova. I have such a small window of time to make the correct decisions here that it's just basically impossible to happen. And yet, this is a tale of the vast majority of my fights against people in this game, not just Hypernova. This is why the muscle memory is so important, so that you can react to this before cognitively thinking about it. But if 1400 hours hasn't given me the muscle memory needed to react at least well enough to not die instantly, then I don't really know what more can be done. This is an extremely difficult time for me, and I can't really expect myself to play well given my mental state and everything going on around me. But I still expected more out of myself. It's extremely disappointing to see I have gone absolutely nowhere in such a long period of time. But truly I can only begin to objectively measure my growth if I am ever able to actually leave the current circumstances I am in real life. But once again, that depends on factors that are outside of my control. All I can really do is wait, watch, and try to at least find the energy to keep trying to practice and improve, even though it doesn't seem like it's having an effect.